And you're live.
Hello, everyone. It is the 7th of July in murder capital USA, New Orleans. That's from my political rant days. You are listening to United Public Radio. This is the Supernatural Substation, and I am your host, Aline Costanio, and my co-host, Bernadine LeBlanc, is in the wings.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Just hello.
Well, and Zeke. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, how was your 4th of July?
I actually stayed home.
Getting old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do well. We had a barbecue. I mean, we had a grill. My brother grilled, and that was it.
Oh.
So I mean, I'm too old for all of that, and I don't want to see. I've seen fireworks and everything, but
it
you know what?
Over here.
Yeah, it did, but it wouldn't matter because there were huge fireworks in New Orleans, but it was also Essence Fest, and Christ couldn't get me to go down there. I mean, plus the people, it's already crowded. Plus the people going down just to see the fireworks. No, that is one of the one of the rungs of hell. And New Orleans on Essence Fest, seeing the fireworks. It's, one drag queen called Essence Fest Blackout Bingo on Bourbon because it was just not, I didn't say it. That's not me, but she called it that, and that sticks because, anyway, I'm boycotting New Orleans. They have every day they have somebody killed. Folks, just stay away from New Orleans right now. I mean, seriously, there's other parts of Louisiana that are even better and just as interesting, etc. So that done. Anyway, we have a guest coming up. And her name is Winter Balefire, which is a pretty good name, I'll have to say. Balefire. I like that. Yeah. Balefire. I see all these sort of red and blonde head people with their eyes and horns and stuff. Balefire, Odin, and all that. So I'm waiting to see what that is all about. But on the information that you sent me, Winter Balefire, she's a writer. She is a poet, and she is a paranormal researcher and occult researcher. So I also term myself an occult researcher, but it's mostly analysis of situations or filling in the blanks, etc. So I guess maybe, we can compare a little notes while we're talking to her, because I know what I mean when I say occult researcher, right? So for instance, the infamous he who shall not be named case. Have you checked on him lately? I mean, the demons are pretty damn serious. He might be dead. Seriously. So have you checked on him?
I checked on him. It was the end of last year, and he would not even, I could see his nose. That was about it. He wouldn't open the door for us, and I was just worried about him, and he wasn't answering his phone. He wasn't on Facebook for a really long time. So I did go, me and Danny, we went, and he cracked the door. I could hear all kind of noises and screams and stuff from the inside, which could have been a loud TV, but who knows? And I let him know, I was just checking on him because he wasn't responding to my calls and stuff. And he's like, I don't need your help anymore.
Oh.
And he closed the door.
Probably paid hell for just reaching out for help,
Yeah.
So that was a situation where you had an initial interview with him, like a potential client. And I found out about it because you were going through processing the EVPs from the interview with him, and you actually heard demonic voices on the EVP, right?
Right.
So you called me, and we went over
right away.
Right away. I'll let you. She ran out of her house and called me. That was
after I grabbed my rosary and ran out the door.
Like Lorraine Warren, huh? Get your rosary, going out there. You called me and I said I didn't want to listen to it. And one of the reasons
Right.
why is because it replicates itself.
Hmm.
Like you finally did send it to me and I did listen to it. And I listened to what you're saying, but there could be a lot of explanations when somebody's telling you, yeah, I fooled with magic back then, blah, 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 and this has been going on. And I mean, you really have to be able to sort through all that. So you and I together, uh, basically went through following, like, the breadcrumbs back, and what you were describing to me, the way that he was, and then what you were hearing on the recorder or on the recordings out, I was telling you this because this guy could be a flake, and we do know of people who, start right before they become demonologists, they get scared by, saying a name or something like that. Like, you can't say the name because
Right.
they're going to come, well, that's not true. It isn't good to go around just repeating demons' names. That's, but you talk about it and it's not like they're waiting there to lunge into your conversation because frankly, they're busy with other stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but so we had to look, through and for what you knew about it. And, his he was like 18 or something like that when he first, started doing magic to impress a girl. Now that's stupid. Any of you guys listening out there, eventually, if you come to that pass in your life where you're like, I really want this girl and she's into black magic, I'm going to do it too. Just find somebody else, right? Or go take a cold
Right.
shower or take a vacation because this man let hell into his life
Yeah.
and nobody has been able to kick it out, and he will not get anywhere near getting cured of it or saved from it because the demons will not let him go. So,
They harm people, that he cares about.
right. Well, yeah, I mean, it was his brother was in a car and the guy driving, they got in a wreck. I mean, that was just to prove that they could do it,
Well,
which I
every
would.
time he would go to church, he would
Mhm.
see demons on the altar.
Right.
But
So,
he actually called the specific demon's name in the
mhm,
ritual that they did a blood sacrifice.
mhm,
It was a group of people
right, and
that were already into the occult, but he
mhm,
just fell into it because of the girl.
yeah,
He called it in and he actually got it. And he
yeah.
had it for, he's in his 30s now. He did that when he was 15. So he's been dealing with this all this time. And even speaking to him on the phone, you can hear the screams and just chaos in his house. And he lives alone. And
Hmm.
when I went to his house, see, when he called me, he just wanted to know if he was schizophrenic because the doctors would tell him that, which, in reality, a doctor cannot diagnose possession.
Hmm. Right.
They will sedate you and say that you're schizophrenic because of the symptoms and things that you're having.
Hmm.
Um, so he kept going into the hospital from getting beat the hell up, but
Yeah.
he lives alone, so there's nobody
Hmm.
there to do that to him.
Hmm.
He had to take all the crosses off the walls because they'd fly off the walls. His things would
Yeah.
get broke, and
Hmm.
this just kept in his head and nagging him and nagging him and nagging him. And eventually, what it wants is your soul. I mean, people that know about the occult know that that is their main goal.
Yep.
So they're going to torture him until they
They want
get
your they want you to pull your spirit out of your body and keep it forever, and they want to destroy that soul.
right. And
I
and
mean,
the
I
demon.
differentiate. Like a lot of people, I'll say soul too sometimes, but when I mean spirit, but I differentiate from the two because the spirit is aware of everything that's going to happen once they get
Mhm.
hold of him on the other side. The soul becomes polluted by stuff like that, and it can't go back to the creator and be absorbed because it's ruined. And so yeah, they do get to take him body and well, spirit and soul, but his spirit, body, and soul, and probably his physical body. Because I can imagine if he was dead, that they're going to stay with it wherever there's festering and you know, and evil decomposition and all that, they're going to stay with it as long as possible. So they're going to put him in the
They
ground.
got his whole family away from him. I mean, nobody wants to be around him because he's actually a really soft-spoken person.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sit with him a little while, like I did, you know,
So I remember the description of its back straight against the wall. I'm like, where's the nearest exit?
He
right?
actually started to change, like his facial features. I mean, he started to snarl like an animal, you know, and I'm like, okay, we got enough. We got to go by.
Yeah. So, you know, and I ask you about him because I am concerned, but there's not anybody, unless he wants to help, you know, there's not anybody going to come in, and even though we now know people who would, you know, but he's not going to tell. But I mean, the demon would kill him probably.
He's too
if
far
he tried
gone.
again. Yeah, he is, and that's, you know, that's a cautionary tale. And when I was about to say that, when he's dead, and let's say they bury him in, you know, family grave or whatever, and you get what happens, you know, this brand new paranormal team comes in, and guess what? They're doing EVPs and taking pictures, and the demons are still with his body in the grave as well. So guess what they have, you know, and ghouls. So guess what they got? They got problems too. But as you know, in the area of occult analysis, you say blood, you say they were doing a ritual, you know, and they spilled blood, they did sacrifices, they went to black magic, etc. Well, anytime, as you know, as an occultist, you know, anytime you spill blood in a space, whatever you're summoning, and if it manifests, if you're doing it correctly, it's going to stay there. The place is going to be polluted for a long time. If it's outside, or if it's in a basement, or if it's somewhere, that area is going to hold that negative, extremely negative and ominous energy for years to come. There's just no getting away from it. And that's because that's what the blood does. The blood of the sacrifice. It connects it to the place. So you put all of these facts plus your knowledge in it. And so we said, you know, we basically came to the conclusion that, yeah, you know, this guy, he even talked about doing black magic, right? He explained it to you and all, but so we knew, and it was pretty, you know, it was pretty obvious and pretty cut and dry. But then we had the one where the lady, or you had the one where the lady was seeing all the fairies in the trees, and they had all had on like little black leather coats, and they had motorcycles, and she wasn't crazy or anything like that. And you know, you told me about it, and I'm like, if I was just somebody, you know, who was just like, I'd say, oh, she's crazy, she thinks she's seen it or whatever, you know, because there's so many skeptics in the paranormal. What's good about an occultist is that you can say, well, here's my opinion. I think she's actually seeing things because these are fairies, these are elementals, these are gnomes and things. You know, I don't mean a garden gnome or a Roman gnome, you know, whatever. These are appearing to her, and you were trying to decide whether or not to actually go do an investigation. And I told you then that she shouldn't do anything to get rid of them if they're not harming her. And if in fact everything's okay around her, then she does not need a team or anybody to come in there and kick them out, because they will give you hell if you kick them out. They'll give her hell, they'll give us hell, they'll go where we are, you know. And seriously, I think that was like our first encounter of an actual fairy haunting, or a haunting by fairies. So we knew that. There was another one. Do you remember the one that was It's a While, Guest in 10 Minutes? So I'm sorry, I'm reading out loud. It was out in the boonies. I don't know where it was, but there was a pile of trees out in the backyard, or a bonfire that was out in the backyard, where allegedly puppies had been thrown into the fire by kids who were like doing kind of like half-assed doing black magic. I don't know if you remember that one, but all the pictures of it kept coming up with the energy and all. And so there was, you know, there was this ring of whatever around it. It was just a burn pile, really. But they were afraid that there was something, you know, that's where the demons were hiding, and you know, they're in this pile and all that. So I went out there with, you know, just some incense.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah,
because you went in the attic, didn't you?
I went in the attic and we saw that big shadow.
And we
then
had
I
an
went out to this,
EVP from the attic too.
right. And I took basically what I said to the pile of wood is that you don't have any reason to be here. You're gone. They didn't give you blood. They didn't give the puppies to you for sacrificing. They're just evil. And I did say, like, if you want to go, do you want to go haunt and torment the ones who would throw puppies in a fire? Be my guest, but like you can't stay here. So, and I don't know. I mean, they never called you back and said there wasn't. So hopefully it went away. But it's
Well,
interesting.
she's actually a paranormal investigator now with a team.
Okay, good. But you might want to come back to the burn pile. Don't throw any puppies or cats out there.
No.
People don't understand wherever blood is spilled, and I don't care what blood it is, human all the way down to the minutest, whatever. It could be a fish, depending on the demon. It's going to stay there. It's pollution. But going back to he who shall not be named, talking about schizophrenia in Risks Incidental as an occultist, I take a couple of standout stories like the Amityville Horror and I analyze them, and basically the way that I do. And one that came to mind because you said schizophrenia is the story of January Schofield, who is one of the rarest diagnosed with childhood schizophrenia. And I basically posit in my own analysis of it that the child is not schizophrenic, because like you said, then they want to medicate her. This child was like 3 days old or a week old and was watching stuff. And infants really can't see for like the first couple of weeks. I mean, it's blurry, but they can't really. She was watching things floating around in the air. She was interacting with whatever this was as a tiny infant. And as she grew up, she would say that numbers were telling her to do stuff, that, this one appears as a black cat, that's a dog. The number 471 or whatever, there was this specific number that was the bad one. And, they're giving her this medicine, they're pursuing this, it's totally scientific and medical treatment. And in my opinion, I don't know why they haven't brought in like a trance medium or somebody, basically, or an actual parapsychologist, which is not really a term anymore, but, to put this child under and realize that, she said, she tried to kill her little brother and she said the rats told her to do it. The army of rats. Okay. Yeah. And she's in complete torment. And I'm not saying that she doesn't have mental issues now, because this kind of stuff could give you, but from the get-go, and know what, I'm sorry, I looked down. Yes, Joe, please. And I lost my complete thought. I don't know what I was saying. But anyway, someone like us would look at it from the outside in, and that's basically what I did. What I would do was call in, a trance medium, et cetera, and then I would begin to look. And what I was going to say is knowing hospitals as we do, and knowing the attachments.
I keep hearing blinking.
Oh, I'm not.
Must be somebody trying to call in.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's Joe calling our guest in. Anyway, so I hear it too now. Here we are, the techno twins, right? We're like, what's that? We don't know what's that. Anyway, these are all situations where knowledge of the occult helps. There, I think somebody in the doghouse. The date and time of the show, it's now. Hey, doghouse. It's the date. I said it at the beginning. It's 7/7/17, and it's 9:00 Central when we came on.
I'm putting our Facebook page on there.
Yeah. Say hello. Okay. I think we've got Winter with us, Bernadine. So since you've been in touch, why don't you go ahead and bring her in?
Hello, Winter. Are you there? Hello.
She dropped.
Oh,
okay,
she dropped
out. We are having Pal Talk and Skype. Skype again was giving me problems, and I had to restart my computer.
Hello.
There she is. Go ahead,
Hi.
Dean.
How are you?
Hi, good, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to call and it kept connecting over, but I couldn't hear anything. So.
Mm. Yeah, we were. It was. I think we're having problems with just our Skype tonight.
Yeah, and
And I'm Eileen
I'm
Pastanio. I'm Bernadine's co-host, so I wanted to just welcome you for the show. Now that we have you, go ahead, Bernadine.
Hi, I'm glad you came in. I know we were having a little trouble, but glad to
yeah, and
have you on the show.
thank you. Yes, I'm glad to be here.
Um,
Yeah.
Eileen, you have her bio up?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was. I was responding to someone in the chat. You must think we're
Oh,
like
I'm
these
sorry.
complete idiots, but we're not really. Let me tell the audience a little bit about you, Winter. Winter Balefire is a writer, poet, paranormal researcher, and occultist from Los Angeles, California. Her articles on the paranormal, magic, lore, and urban legends have been continuously published since 2009, and she has been the subject of interviews in these areas. When not exploring the macabre and bizarre, Winter enjoys writing short stories and poetry. In early 2016, her poetry was featured in the book Asylum of the Ancient Ones through the H.P. Lovecraft Lunatic Asylum. Writing has been close to Winter's heart from a young age. Heavily influenced by Anne Rice, Edgar Allan Poe, and Sylvia Plath, her writing is often considered dark and symbolic. Winter is a strong believer in the power of the written word and its ability to heal. So, now that we know that about you, we know exactly who you are,
Yeah.
and I'm delighted to have you here. So,
Oh, I'm so happy to be on with you guys. Thank you.
thank you for joining us. I was looking at your Amazon site, and you got some really cool books on there, which we can talk about before you leave us. But I just would like to know one thing:
Yes.
Balefire.
Yes.
I was going, is that a pseudonym or is that your last name, Balefire?
It is my pen name.
Hmm.
Winter because I was born on the winter solstice, and Balefire because I wanted something that symbolized my poetry. I took the pen name before I started writing the paranormal and occult
Hmm.
articles, and I wanted something that was both. In my mind, I was thinking like a funeral pyre, like something that is kind of dark, but also kind of warm and inviting as well. So, like light
That's
in the
what
dark.
I was. Yeah, I was talking to Bernadine, and I was like, balefire. I mean, I love the word. I like it. It's one of those
Yeah.
words like werewolf. It's like, oh, I like that word. And I'm thinking balefire, and like, like we can see a bunch of Norsemen and with the horns and the lights flickering off their helmets and stuff. And I was like, that's cool. So I'd have to ask you, and I said I would. So, but
Yeah.
how did you? I mean, a little bit in your bio there, but really from a young age. I mean, what basically was a catalyst, for you to become interested in the dark side, but then also to write about it?
Um, with the poetry, I think it was mostly, teenage angst, and
Yep.
um, and I wanted to find a healthy way to get that out and express myself. Um, as I grew older and the internet became more popular, it really gave me, the opportunity for other people to start reading my work, and people started coming to me saying that they really appreciate it, or that I really, helped them get their emotions out, or I was able to voice for them how they were feeling, and realizing that they're not alone, or realizing that that other people feel the way they do, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It really helped to push me a little bit further into actually getting all of my work together to be able to put it into a book. And the thing behind my writing is I just want to make sure that people know that sometimes you think really, dark things, or you think things that you really are surprised by yourself sometimes. And as long as there's a healthy way to get that out through art, through writing, through painting, through music, whatever you decide to do, that is kind of my goal, is so people understand, yes, these feelings do occur, but there are creative and positive ways to get it out, and it can definitely help people in the long run.
Mm-hmm. So you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, with the paranormal stuff, I grew up in a very active house, and, from a very young age, and I was more curious than fearful of everything. And that's just kind of, it snowballed from there into research and...
Hello?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought we dropped you. I would not be surprised.
It just snowballed from there into research and really trying to learn what these things I was experiencing meant, where this energy was coming from, where this energy was going, which kind of was a catalyst for me to start learning more about different magical practices and the human spirit and energy and grounding and how people, chose to express themselves, I guess you can say. It really all just kind of snowballed into one big mound of interest for me, should we say.
Mm-hmm. And so I know you indicate that you're an occultist and you're an occult researcher. So and you've referenced magic already. So have you a particular magical path? And when did you get into that? Around the same time as you were like maturing into understanding what was happening?
Pretty much. I'm very much a nature lover. I'm very much a believer in the power of nature. As far as a path, not really a particular path. I think that my biggest thing with researching and learning all of these things, and one of the things that I really wanted to focus on was to learn about the practices and the religions and the ways of people that society generally shies away from or is scared to learn about. And I really wanted to do my part in trying to educate people on, okay, is this something that really truly is scary, or is this just something that is misunderstood? Because there's so many things that people just do not understand, or movies and television have completely distorted. So I really wanted to make sure that I learned as much as I could so that I could properly educate others, which is what I try to do in my articles, as to, what this stuff really is about.
Mm-hmm. That's okay, Dean, I'm sorry. I know you have some things that you wanted to ask Winter.
Whenever you were younger, did you have any paranormal experiences or activity in a home that you lived in that would have sparked your interest that early?
Growing up, the house was very, very active, and I think one of the earliest things I remember was waking up to this very dark shadow that was completely blocking out any light. And my first instinct was to go towards it. Like, what is this? I was very young. I mean, I was probably 5 or 6. And when I went towards it, it darted away, like through the bedroom door. And all I could think of was, what was that? Where did it go? And these things became normal for me in that house because I wasn't told, oh, this isn't real or this isn't happening. So the shadows, the doorknob shaking, the lights turning on, noises, things like that, I just lived with because I didn't know this was not a normal situation at the time. So I think really starting to get into what these things were and learning about the paranormal and learning about I know there's so many different aspects to the paranormal right now, talking about human, what happens to us once our physical self leaves. I think learning what energy remains, I think I wanted to focus on if that energy was strong enough to remain outside of our living bodies, what can that energy do within our living bodies, which led me to, when I was a teenager, focus more on learning about magical practice. And, it started out lightly, not so much magical practice, but, meditation and, like I said, centering and grounding and shielding and things like that. And then just moving on to, I think, Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft was the first thing I ever bought, just to kind of read into. And now I have, hundreds of books, because I just became fascinated with different ways people approached, different types of magic and different types of, ways to expel their energy, should I say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry, Dean, I'll jump in here. I know exactly where you're coming from with the active house, because my childhood was the same way. But actually, the haunting activity, it was not residual, but it was like based in the environment that we built the house on. And then my mother and her, her forays into the occult and things that she was doing, just weren't making things any better, just a lot worse. So I know exactly. I don't know, but a lot of people have said to me, well, you're an occultist, and that means you practice the occult. And, I've said to them, I know all about the occult. I've owned up to some things that I've practiced, which are, my business, but I've done it and I don't do it anymore. But I think, and I wonder if you agree with me, that the best way to research the paranormal is to have a knowledge of the things that put people in these situations. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you don't know your enemy, how are you going to fight them? You got to know, right? So I agree. I'm glad you agree with me.
Correct. And it's funny because I did a event a couple weeks ago where I went and did some tarot readings for a women's group. And the second I said the word occultist, there was this universal groan in the room because that word is so scary to people. Mm-hmm. And I had to kind of elaborate and say, that just means that I have studied and spent a lot of my time learning about these things that are, scary or misunderstood to people, so that I can help better educate people on, why these things are scary. It was interesting. The same thing. Once someone hears that word, they just immediately get a reaction, and it's usually a pretty negative one.
Which, if they were smart, it wouldn't be, because
right.
So you say, okay, instead of doing your cards, I'm just going to go and throw you down in a cemetery and do magic on you. You know what I mean? So,
exactly.
I'm taking in a little Southern voodoo here, or hoodoo, but like that. There is a stigma attached to it, because immediately people, the very first thing they see is probably Aleister Crowley, and then everything else, that we could possibly be doing.
I mean, and as you know, being in New Orleans, I think voodoo is so misunderstood. Mm-hmm. And there's so many things people don't know about it or don't understand about it. And, I've been there a couple of times. I love it. It is definitely a very charming place for me to be. But I do see a lot of the, how, and I'm not saying all of it, but I do see how some things are kind of played up for the more tourist type of.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how a person's perception can snowball into so many other things.
Yeah, there was, if you remember, I don't know if you ever watched Paranormal State, but there was one episode. There was one episode, if you remember, that they had gone to New Orleans, and they had one of those little dime store, like, just stick voodoo dolls, or whatever, and it was a souvenir, but these people were convinced, right, that it was causing the problem, and then they started giving it attention. Then they somebody figured out the name of what it would be, and the next thing you know, Ryan Buell is out in the shed burning the thing. Okay, and it's like, right. The very first rule is, with a puppet, don't name it unless you mean business. Don't give it a name. But regarding voodoo, a lot of people, well, they that comes in with, the serpent and the rainbow and all that, but it's really a religion. The people that practice it, it is their religion, their belief system.
Yeah.
What people associate with the bad stuff is really hoodoo and the root working and the conjure that goes along with that. But yeah, and it's no matter how many times you tell them, it just,
no,
it doesn't sink in because it's more exciting,
It is. It is.
the voodoo
And
dolls.
TV said something different, and
Yeah.
yeah, it exactly. It's funny, and it's true. It really is all in the intent and the energy that you give something, and a lot of people don't understand that.
Go ahead, Dean.
Do you have, well, don't name any names, I'm sure, but when I was growing up, I had aunts and my grandmother and all that were into the occult. They would do seances, the Ouija board, spells, things like that. And of course, the intent, being Italian, was not a good thing. They
Everything's done with passion.
right. So, did you have anyone, that kind of led you that way? I mean, the way I seen it when I was growing up wasn't the right way, but it didn't lead me the wrong way just because of that. But it did lead me to want to research why.
Correct. Yeah. Not necessarily anyone in my family who has practiced. I will say there are some people who are very knowledgeable and very sensitive to certain energies. I was lucky enough to not be told growing up, this is going to be your religion or this is going to be your path. I was lucky enough that they decided I will choose that on my own when it's time. When I did choose what I was going to study and what I was going to focus on, some of the reaction wasn't great because, again, of the misunderstandings. But I think as far as I know, myself and maybe one other person are the only ones who has taken a great interest and knowledge in the unknown, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any abilities, like psychic abilities?
As I said, we, myself and another family member are very sensitive to certain energies, especially if there is spirit activity or something in a house or in an object. He and I can sometimes just look at each other and silently agree. And I think that just comes from allowing myself to not be closed off. Like I said, with witnessing these things so young, and then usually, when you grow up, you kind of lose that a little bit, or you're told these things aren't real, or you become closed off to this energy or these entities. And luckily, we didn't really lose that part. So I wouldn't call it necessarily a psychic ability. I would call it a sensitivity, and we both are very much empaths as well, which, again, I don't know if that's necessarily an ability. It definitely impedes on some things sometimes. I'll ask him something, and he'll pretty much say what I was thinking before I can even get it out, because he and I share very much a similar connection and a similar type of just agreement on everything. So other than being empathic and sensitive to certain energies, that's about it, really.
Well, with the TV shows having, such a huge impact, I find that I don't know how to say this other than just like this. Everybody in every group you'll see somebody sitting there, I'm sensitive. I was this, I'm an empath, and it isn't that I don't believe that they believe that. It's just that I don't believe there are that many people and it seems like every team has one, right? It's like every
Right.
team with the blue jeans and the black shirt. I mean, it's like the uniform, and then you have to have, you have to have the tech guy. It's like roles, in other words, and they put
Correct.
these,
Yeah.
they'll put people into a role if, it's in that particularly empath and sensitive. And you probably know this from experience. It's not good to say that you are and get in a situation where you're telling people, oh, I'm getting this and I'm feeling this, when it has nothing to do with what's going on. I mean,
Right. You can
that could
really
put
mislead
somebody's life in
people.
danger, right? I mean, seriously.
You can really mislead people, and people almost wear it like a badge. And I've learned that it's not necessarily something to brag about, because usually if you're picking up on something, it's not necessarily, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but there are, like, the person I'm referring to in my family who kind of has the same sensitivities. He walked into a house one time with horrible energy and got physically ill. Same thing. You can walk into a room and excuse me, just get a feeling right off the bat. And usually if it's that strong, it's not always necessarily something that's welcome.
Right. And it isn't good to go saying, well, I thought it was this, and it's not that. And I mean, we never see that part on the show.
Right,
Really, what happens is that a lot of it goes bad, and then they don't care because they're, you know what I mean? They want all of the, the drama and stuff for the show.
Exactly. And people also go in automatically thinking it's a human entity it's dealing with. Sometimes it's not.
Right.
It can really cause a lot of, wreak a lot of havoc opening those doors.
Yeah. Well, so when you were young and you were writing and you were just starting to, were you were you kind of like siphoning experiences into your poetry and then into your fiction characters? And I don't know how much of a background or a framework it might have been for you.
I think I've kept them pretty separate. The only thing that I can say connects the two is the fact that I do not deny myself any sort of feeling or thought. I will write it down. And basically just being emotionally open and accepting and open to different thoughts and different feelings, and I think in allowing myself to again be open to my environment and the energy in my environment, I'm also very open to my own self and my own thoughts, and I am able to just comfortably write everything down and not worry so much about, this person's going to think I'm depressed, or this person's going to think I'm suicidal, or this person's going to think. I know that it's, for me, it's my art, and it really is, something that's cathartic for me. And I really think in allowing myself to be open and not really shutting myself off from anything has definitely helped with my writing. But as far as the paranormal or the occult aspect, it really is pretty separate. Because most of my poetry book is basically all very intense, sad, lost love type of poetry, and it's very descriptive and sometimes can get very dark. And when it comes to any sort of magical practice and things like that, I try to keep myself very neutral and especially even in just researching everything, I try to make sure that I'm in a neutral spot. I'm not feeling a certain way. I'm not feeling overly anxious or anything. So I really think that affects your perception of things. So, yeah, long explanation, longer. It's pretty separate.
Go on, Dean.
Do you work with a specific paranormal group, or do you have a group?
No, I don't. I haven't really done too much investigating. Most of what I do is just research and, making sure that the people who do choose to investigate do it safely and properly. I think, again, with television and all these paranormal shows, people just want to go running about and not understand that there's a lot of preparation before, during, and after. So my goal is to really basically just do a lot of research and make sure these people understand that you can't just go running around with a, digital recorder and call it a day, that there's precautions.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's my role too.
And
Kind of feel like I'm
consequences.
right, because we talk a lot about the dangers of that. I wrote a book on it, and I guess I'm kind of the party pooper, because
Right,
like. I remember I was at speaking about real vampires, as opposed to, folklore or whatever, and tell them what it really is not something they want in the bed with them, because it isn't Lestat and it isn't Edward, whatever his name is. It's something entirely different, and they go, no, and they sit there and shake their heads. But my story is all about, it's like, I'm sorry to tell you, I would rather read, the real thing, but that's just me. So
right.
her and I, Dean and I are like, yeah, we're the party poopers. We're here to tell you, watch out, don't run with that. You're going to put somebody's eye out. We're those two.
Exactly.
you
Yes.
know,
Yeah. And
but I would feel
I'm
bad if I didn't tell people that. You know what I mean?
right. It's the important thing is to have that knowledge and to share that knowledge. And if people choose to ignore it and do something stupid, then that's on them. But at least you attempted to make sure that they were properly informed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
What kind of work do you do with the Paranormal Underground?
I write articles for them monthly, and I have not done any recently, but I was also doing a few radio correspondent pieces for them as well. Basically, just any stories that were happening in the news that were kind of weird or paranormal related. I wrote for a publication back in 2009, and that just focused solely on paranormal. And when I joined Paranormal Underground, I was able to spread that into writing about magic and lore and urban legends, and it gave me more freedom to write about multiple things and not just stick with haunted things or ghosts. And actually, this fall, my next book that's coming out is going to be actually a collection of all the articles that I've written since 2009. And it will be kind of separated out into paranormal, occult, lore, urban legends, and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
For the macabre, I know that your interests are dark, macabre, and bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
What type of macabre and bizarre are you referring to?
Well, a couple things. The things that are bizarre to the general population, but not necessarily to people like us.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the different types of practices, the different types of religion. I recently did an article on necromancy, and that was mostly a way to, again, educate people and kind of go into a little bit of the history of it and pretty much talk about how this is not something you want to do too much of. And as far as anything macabre, I'm one of those people that are very fascinated by serial killer stories.
Me too.
Yes, Gacy, Ramirez, Dahmer. Anytime there's documentaries or anything on that, I'm
Eileen
right there.
Warnos.
Yeah, oh
Yes.
God. Yeah. Don't say Eileen. That was Eileen. That was not my name. I'm not
Oh,
associated with Warner.
Eileen Warnos. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Charlize. We could say it. Never mind. Charlize. I don't want to be blonde. I don't know. Serial killers? Real crime? I don't know. My jury's out on that one. I don't know if I like that or not. I watch cold case files and stuff on TV.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I also love just the psychological aspect behind it, really tapping into these people's minds and what makes them tick. And even with the cold case files things, I love forensics and the mystery behind finding out different clues and putting everything together. I love stuff like that.
I like them if they're medieval or happened, like in the Dark Ages or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really do, because there's a lot. I mean, there is, and it's mostly ecclesiastical, town records and stuff like that. It's, and there are these bizarre things that happened, and it's always amazing to see how they, recorded it and what they did with it. So I'm more like that. I mean, I like it. I read it. I like to know weird stuff about. I just don't need all the details of some of the stuff that they did, because I won't be able to sleep. It's funny. I'd rather read about demons and stuff right before bed. It's just like, but I'm sorry, Dean. I kind of sidetracked us there. Go ahead.
That's okay. I have a question about when you read the tarot cards, and you also use a pendulum.
Yes.
If someone comes to you for a reading that we feel may be possessed, would you be able to pick up on that before the reading
I believe so.
with your sensitivity? And would you continue reading them? And what would you do with your cards after? I mean, is there a ritual that you take,
I do.
from them
Yeah.
touching your cards?
If I was picking up on something like that, I would absolutely not read for them, because you don't know who is speaking at that particular time. And as far as in that case, if it was something that I did not pick up on until maybe in the middle of the reading, and they had already touched my cards or I had already interacted with them. Usually what I do when I do any reading is I will actually take my cards, and after cleansing everything, I will put them wrap them in plastic and actually put them in the freezer for a little bit. But if we're talking about somebody who is dealing with something inhuman, that deck would not exist any longer. I'm very, very wary of that type of energy, and and dealing with inhuman. And luckily, I have not myself had to deal with inhuman entities. I've known a couple people who have, and it's just definitely something that you stay clear from as much as possible.
How would you tell that person that, no, I can't read you?
I would probably just tell them, I don't think this is a good time, or basically explain to them that the cards are responding to their energy, and that something doesn't feel right for me, and I don't want to give them a incorrect or off reading, basically not to anger them, but
right.
Politely decline.
Even if that would be a scheduled reading?
Yeah, I would not I would not deal with that at all.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I just say, I can't do it. There's one time I read, it was in a bar, and I was reading for a bunch of people, like one right after the other. And and I had people coming in and telling me, I want to go home with this person. And then like the next person would be the person that other person was connected to. And I think they're cheating. It was like, but I was so sick. I was literally sick for days. I was
it's
just,
exhausting.
I haven't read since then. And I will not. Oh, it was terrible. I've never really experienced being so drained like that. It was so much negative energy and so much chaos. And you can sometimes you can feel it, like, a mile away. They start snapping and the energy just starts picking up. But, look, I wanted to go into your books. Here, I'm looking at Love Letters Destroyed. But I'm also, and that came out earlier this year, right?
That was
And,
released in late December.
oh, okay. And then, the Onyx series, that's like the latest one, the fourth novel in the Cedarverse.
That one is actually, so a very good friend of mine, who C.G. Blade, who wrote that book, he's an amazing science fiction writer, and he actually used me as a character in that book, who was a witch, and he was referring to me a lot for information on everything. I mean, from what tarot card would come up in a devastating reading, and what type of magic would be used for this, or what's a symbol for this, and he really used me as a reference for the character and for certain things in that book. So he had me as on, or he has me as a because I was a reference and because I'm a character in that book. That's why it's showing up under my name as well. But that's all. I mean, he's had he's writing a new one now, but his whole series is just incredible. But so I'm a character and I was a reference.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
We'll have to
and
look at it.
his definitely. I wasn't really into science fiction until I started reading his stuff, and that just the way he writes is just you really get. It's one of those things where you start reading and you get involved, and it's 3 hours went by and what happened. So yeah, it's definitely something to check out. But yeah, Onyx, I'm a character, and I'm going to be a character in a upcoming book as well for him. So I mean we're really really great friends, but and we kind of support each other and feed off each other, and it's really cool. I dig really connecting with creative people like that.
Yeah, and having a character named after you, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, Love Letters Destroyed, that's
Yes.
that's your work, right?
That is my work, yes.
And this is poetry,
That is all
or
poetry.
and it's a collection of your poetry over years, or specifically written for this volume, or
It really is a collection over the years. Some poems in there are probably 15 years old, if not older. When I was getting the book together, I really reread everything, and I mean, obviously, where your mind was 15 years ago is not going to be where it is now. And
right.
I kind of revised and rewrote a few things or reworded a few things, but it's it is all poetry from many many years ago, and some of them are there are some rhyming poems, and there's some free verse poems, and some of the free verse poems were a little more recent, within the past couple of years, but it really is a very long overdue collection that I was holding on to until I found someone willing to take a chance on me and get it out to the public.
That's cool. Yeah, because I'm looking at the quick look inside on Amazon, and I'm looking at poems, evocation of springtime, to whom it may concern, reasoning signs, edges of. So do you like doing poetry more than fiction?
I do. I think because I really love to use heavy symbolism, and I really like to tell a story without being too literal, and I am working on my first fiction piece. Which will be after the article compilation. But poetry was definitely my first love and my first form of self-expression, I think. So it's always going to be closest to me.
Cool. Okay, Dean.
What about your contribution to the H.P. Lovecraft Lunatic Asylum? The ancient ones. Is that poetry also?
It is. That was the first time I was ever officially published. That was in early 2016. The first time my poetry was officially published. They started out, if I'm correct, they started out as like a Facebook group that just kind of grew, and they are obviously very influenced by H.P. Lovecraft. And the book was actually pretty cool. It was a compilation book, but it was set in an asylum, and each patient was a chapter. And each chapter told their story, and people submitted poetry, people submitted just short stories, artwork. I mean, it really contained everything. And so my section was called The Mad Poet, obviously, and about 3 of my poems were featured in there. So, and, it was exciting. It was the first time my poetry was recognized as being worth putting into a compilation with some other really great writers. So it was definitely a good experience.
Well, the cover kind of looks like something from the 1800s. Is it based on the past?
I'm sorry?
The cover of the book reminds me of what would be like sort of the 1800s or the past. Is it?
It's it takes place in modern time, but it depends on, while you're reading it, it depends on which patient they're focusing on, because some people are mentally stuck in that time or believe they are from that time. So.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. That sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So you're going to be doing it again?
For that particular project, no. I know the book is being re-released. I'm still waiting on the details of that, re-released under a new publishing company. But I really wanted to get my own work out there, so that people could see me as an individual artist. So once I got my poetry book out, and now I'm getting this compilation book together, and then I'm going to be working on the fiction piece. So, I am going to be part of a one more poetry compilation. There's a compilation coming out that's featuring some of the top new poets in California. So I will be part of that, but I'm really trying to focus more on just getting my name out there as an artist and trying to show as many of my loves as possible with the poetry and the articles, and then, hopefully getting my first fiction novel out.
Awesome.
We're like a stereo. Awesome. If we say it at the same time, we sound professional, Lincoln. Awesome. I'm sorry. I'm just making fun. But do you go on paranormal investigations? And if you do, I mean, what are some of the scariest things that you can recall, at least with what you've encountered? Ones that have affected, really, stayed with you?
I have not purposefully gone on any paranormal investigations in a very long time. And I can tell you, being out where I am in Los Angeles, there are plenty of areas to investigate. I think one of the things that I can recall, I was several years ago. I was on the Queen Mary, and we were walking around down in the pool area, and I remember I was talking to someone, and I was saying how, because they were doing this show and they were doing this like smoke and mirrors type of just I'm sorry, but this gaudy thing of, trying to make it appear more like they did some lights around the pool, and it wasn't, And so I remember mentioning to somebody, I wonder if, what's here is upset by this, or if this is something that affects, because there's definitely a lot going on that ship. And I felt a tug on my purse, like, when a child is trying to get your attention. And I looked back, and I was at the end of the line. There was nobody there. And so we kept walking, and anytime I would mention feeling something or wondering about, something in the area, that same little, spirit or whoever it was definitely a child, because of you could tell, just tugging at me. And I felt terrible, because I'm sitting there thinking, are they following me now? You wonder, am I taking something back with me, back into the room, or, Luckily when we got out of the area, it stopped. And I, didn't experience too much else after that.
Isn't that area haunted by a child that drowned in the pool or something like that?
In the pool area, yeah, there are children who were, and like I said, they had done this little smoke and mirrors thing where they made it look like little lighted footprints and things like that, and I remember saying, I wonder if this is upsetting or if this is confusing. And the second I said that, it was like this kid going, yes, like, this is,
ridiculous.
Yeah, like, or
he just wanted you to know. Yeah, I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like, I agree with you. I think one thing that did stay with me, not my experience, fortunately, but when you get into this field and you start to become known for what you do, people start, contacting you and sending you things. And I had a person I knew several years ago who had known a girl who decided that she was going to attempt to contact a demon, and she succeeded, and it wreaked havoc, as they do. And he actually caught a picture of where they were. It was snowing at the time, of this perfect outline in the snow, and it still creeps me out to this day to think about it. And I wish I had the picture, because it got destroyed on my old computer.
You're going to hear my dog barking in the back.
That's
I'm sorry.
fine.
I'm sorry.
But there was this perfect outline in the snow of this tiny little entity with a pointed nose, and you could see every detail. And that still kind of stays with me, that picture, because it's
so how did it get into the snow? Because someone said they wanted to know it was there, or?
I'm sorry?
How did it get into the snow? Like, it left its image in the snow deliberately?
Yeah, left the image, yeah. Like an imprint kind of thing. They were in Colorado, so obviously not down here. But and they were trying to get it out of the house, and it just kept, being a nuisance. And it was, that's one of the images that kind of stays with me from just my experiences of people, coming to me with things.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people want to, conjure demons or talk to demons. It's and they really have a TV idea, of what it's going to be like, until they become not possessed but obsessed and oppressed to their graves and stuff. It's a lot of I don't know if you find it, but I always have a challenge with the skeptical people, the
Mhm.
people who are like die-hard skeptics. They don't believe anything, but they're out there with, their ghost boxes and their this and that and their gizmos and all this. And, as they're trying to find proof, of whatever. I was like, well, if you don't believe it's there, um, what are you trying to find proof of? Oh, the paranormal. Well, what do you mean? And knowing, being an occultist, there are 1,000 things it could be, and
Correct.
and you don't believe in any of them. So why are you out here?
Mhm.
I have found though that spirits that are going to act out do enjoy those type of people. And they usually have a rude awakening, but,
Mhm.
I've watched these shows for years. We've been at conferences and it's just, if you don't take it seriously, they don't even know what they're looking for. They really don't.
Yeah, the
Because,
dedicated skeptics usually sit in the front row.
yeah, you're right. They do. But it's like, if, they don't even, I have defined it basically that you're looking for a paranormal experience with the supernatural, proving that you have had a paranormal encounter with the supernatural reality, because we know it's real.
Mhm.
And I've gotten made fun of and everything like that. But they don't believe, they don't understand that we take stuff seriously, because stuff happened that, proved it. They say, oh, and I had one, the biggest skeptic ever, who kept laughing at me. It was at BabelCon, Bernadine, and he kept laughing and saying this isn't true, blah, blah, blah. And I told him exactly which book to get. I said, you go get that little book, you go home and do what the physicist in it tells you to do, and then come back and tell me, if you can come back, come and tell me that you don't believe in it anymore. Because it was a physicist who was basically a skeptic and an atheist, and took on, this particular grimoire and did the work and proved it for himself. So, I mean, here we have a man of science who did exactly what the experiment called for and proved it. So, I always love, that's my little default, it's like, yeah, okay, well, you come back and tell me that, but
Right.
it's shaped so much by what everyone sees on TV,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So I don't know, I have a hard time when they're really setting their mind like that as skeptics. It's like, why are you here? You don't believe in anything, you really don't, don't
And
believe
they
in.
throw the Bible at us. Bible verses, yes.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, the Bible
It's
thumpers.
it's it's interesting because they're skeptics, and then they're going in not knowing what they're looking for, and therefore not knowing how to, number one, protect themselves from whatever they're not looking for, but also they almost want to prove you wrong, and then they always end up being the first ones that get scratched or pushed, or
Oh, whatever,
Um,
yeah. Uh-huh.
so it's
Then they
and
call us.
Yeah, it's a self-replicating machine.
exactly.
The more
Yeah.
skeptics out there, the longer you can stay in business or whatever, quote unquote.
Right. And I think one of the things that really, really has bothered me, and I actually talk quite a bit about it in a couple of articles, and again, will be in the next book, is um, I've come across, again, those of us born before the internet, now with everything um, being readily accessible. There's so many of these. I mean, I know that there's the, what they call the creepy pasta stories with like Slender Man and things like that. But
Mhm.
now there's these. I don't know if you've heard of the rituals that are out there now.
Yeah,
And
different kinds.
yeah, and there's one man hide and seek, where they pretty much have you invite a entity into a stuffed animal and play hide and seek with it, or they have you. It's very unsettling, because the people who are writing these things obviously have some sort of knowledge about um, different things. Um, like with the one man hide and seek, they mentioned putting fingernails or blood or hair into this toy. So they have some sort of knowledge, but kids, teenagers are doing these things thinking, oh, this is going to be fun. And you have no idea what they're doing or what they're welcoming in. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
precisely right. Yep.
and I think that it's almost, what we dealt with before everything was online is nothing compared to now, because it's just everywhere, and especially with the shows that are out and things, and and these rituals are on websites that are geared towards kids. Like, oh, here's
Yeah.
a fun slumber party game, and it's very. So I really wanted to make it my goal to educate people on what you're doing and the dangers involved with it, and hopefully someone will listen.
Someone will. Someone does to us.
Sure do. And it's a
We're gonna have
shame that they are teaching children how to invite, bad spirits, demons. They're
well,
inviting them in.
but you know what? It's always been done. And I know, with your knowledge of Lovecraft, the Necronomicon, everybody,
Yes.
was like, and does it exist? Did it exist? Whatever. But there's that little black paperback, the Necronomicon by Simon. And it was the result of a bunch of witches and sorcerers and practitioners who were, aggravated with the way that people were treating magic. Like it was, same thing that they're doing with the paranormal. Like it's just blew up. So they were pissed off about it. So they contributed to this book some of, the potentially probably parts of the most dangerous spells, things that you're not supposed to. I'm talking about from Enochian, from Goetic, and they're just in bits and pieces, just enough to really burn your hand and really teach you. And that's what is happening, now in the paranormal. Only it's on TV. You see these people doing stuff on TV, and they don't even stop to think about it. And creepypasta and Reddit. Reddit is like one of the biggest clearinghouses for stuff like that, like the rituals and all that. One of them I remember was the elevator ritual. Have you heard of that one?
Oh yeah, where you're supposed to go in a certain order, and then you're supposed to end up in another dimension or something.
Right. You do the whatever. You press the numbers in a particular order. At some point, someone gets on with you, usually a woman. You don't talk to them. They're going to get out of the next floor, and then the next stop is the next dimension or whatever it is, And
Right.
and I know how do you feel about? My belief is just like Slender Man. It's the manifestation of a lot of thoughts. In other words,
Yeah.
so much thought has been put into it that it has become real. And pretty much, do you agree with that? Like,
Oh,
the
absolutely.
fixed thought of it, like you're just a thought form, but in this case, it's on a huge level with everybody contributing to it. Sorry, that was my dog. With everybody contributing to it, it becomes a ritual in itself, right?
Correct. It does, and it's when when I was growing up, it was the Bloody Mary thing, and it does the amount of energy you give something is everything, and I really feel like these people who are going into these things, and I love a good scary story as much as anybody, and some of these stories on Reddit or some of these creepypastas are very, very well written. Some of them have kind of creeped me out, and that's hard to do. But it really is all about the energy you give something, and like the Slender Man thing, and the unfortunate thing that happened with those young girls. And I don't know if you saw the documentary that was out about that, but this
Beware the
girl,
Slender Man.
Yeah, she fully believed that this had to happen, and it's very, very scary, and it's unfortunately, I don't think it's going to end, but
no.
I really think it's important that those of us with the proper knowledge who don't just go into this going, oh, this is cool, this is scary, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that we need to do our part, as you ladies have done in making sure that people are educated, and I can't say that enough, that people are educated about these things. A person's intent can change everything.
Absolutely. That's so true. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start the paranormal party poopers. That's what we're gonna do.
There you go. I'm gonna have shirts made.
That's right. Yeah. Not black though. We'll have some other color.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'm serious. I hate to be, the bearer of bad news. It's like, but you don't want to be in a room least of all in a circle when you're trying to manifest. Oh, I don't know, the spirits of Saturn, and Saturn. You just don't. I mean, there's warnings from the Dark Ages forward to leave that, though, particularly those, but to leave this alone. Basically, no, it can be done, but and in those days, the necromancer was the priest and the local clerics and everything, because they were the ones doing necromancy and summoning demons and doing all the rituals that they found from the Jews and the Arabs and everything. But you're right, and I'm glad you agree with me, because just this thinking about it has become real. People have actually begun to see Slender Man. They have actually, they're projecting it, and I think it's real now. I think it's in the zeitgeist. You know what I mean? It's in the psyche.
That's a perfect way to say it, projecting.
Mm-hmm.
You have enough people giving enough attention, enough energy to something, it can be created. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And just as that can work in a positive sense, that can also work in a negative sense as well.
Exactly. People don't understand. They think it's all fiction, that there are really people out there who will kill you with this stuff, who will, there are people, like I've been on the periphery of a witch war and a voodoo war, and it's not nice. I don't even want to be, you don't even want to be around when this is going on, because it just, and it really works. People laugh at me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you see it with your own eyes. How do you explain this person is dead? So,
right.
But
right.
Anyway, Joe is telling us we got about 3 minutes. Dean, you have anything else for Winter?
No, I was just agreeing on even the Zozo, with the Ouija board. And
oh yeah, what do you think
of
that?
About that as well. Yes, I wrote about that as well. I truly do believe that is something. I really do think, and again, is it something that enough people have given the energy to, that it has manifested, or is it something that was manifesting and more people have just caught on to it? I don't know, but it's definitely a fascinating story. I did write about that one as well.
I heard from a friend, actually, and I'm not talking out of school, but she was concerned about the exposure, to Ouija boards, etc. And she simply told me, this, and it sounded like, she said basically it sounded like there was something with a Z, but they had done it years ago. Like these kids that she was talking about had grown up, so it was. She said it was something like a Zazu or something. I was like, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah.
So, this is like a reverse manifestation. I'm like, so this thing, whatever it is, has been around for years, and I don't believe the guy. I don't believe the guy with the Ouija board, but
right. Yeah, if all these people have experienced the same, similar things, and one of the things that was very interesting to me too is the fact that it would always give different names, but the same names to each time. And or different entities, and as we all know, that's what Inhumans like to do, is confuse and give different names or different personalities to, when it's really just one.
Right, exactly. Well, we're at the end of the hour. It's been great having you on, and I hope you'll come back and promote your next books and everything. But if anyone who is looking to find you, Winter, can you give them your website or where they could contact you?
Yes, my website is winterbalefire.com, and I'm also very active on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, all under Winter Balefire. And for my books, they are on my website. I'm on Amazon, and also I'm on pseudosynthpress.com, which is my publisher.
Cool. Very good. Well, we wish you great success and hope that you'll, come back and share again with us. We always feel validated when we have somebody else who has had the same, the same thing and has taken the same role or been put in it, to keep people from basically hurting themselves. But anyway, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Winter.
Thank you for having me, ladies.
You have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, the old man is saying, let me revise. The man is saying it's break time. So we're going to take a break right here, and we'll see you back on the other side. You're listening to the Supernatural Substation on the United Public Radio Network, or a sensitive, or, you name it, that they can get in touch with spirits. I've seen, even on TV, when you're just watching, it's all set up and everything, but you can see these people get in over their head. And if it's that obvious, that they are getting in over their head right on TV, it's not good, and it was the proliferation of the shows and the teams and everything. And it's just, it's creating problems for people, Dean, are you there?
I hear you, puppy. I was listening to you, puppy. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to get away from my puppy.
Oh. Yeah,
I'll go back in there if you want me to. But.
No, there is a lot of I don't even know if they can change anything right now. There's so many emails I get, and like I said on a couple of other shows, I've gotten emails of they're looking for people to film naked ghost hunters in a bubble that lived there for a year. Just
can you imagine that?
It's just stuff I've never even really thought of. It's like they're running out of things to show, and there's so many people with stories, real legit people, like Paranormal Witness and The Haunting and My Haunted House and things like that. There's so many. It's just overwhelming.
Well, there's going to be a lot for years to come,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the bad methods and the bad science will persist, because it's going to become this, or it has really become the standard, and I'm like, we've talked about several times, why are people reluctant to let others review their material, review their findings, look at their research, why are they, so reluctant? If it was, like one, what do you call it? Like one clearinghouse, with experts that everybody agreed on, then it would be something different. Then we would really have a foundation to build on. In other words, we would have a framework or an outline. To be that simple to say just an outline on, different things. I mean, who is having similar experiences?
A trust issue. When it comes to the paranormal, I think it's more with the evidence. It's a trust issue because you could have two teams working the same case and they will actually doubt,
Yeah.
Well, they'll
argue with each other.
Might have, photoshopped this, or there's no way you could have got that. It's like if they don't get it their own self, they're going to have some doubt in the back of their mind that maybe somebody, screwed with the photo, the video, because there's so much technology out there that you can do that.
Yeah.
You can even mess with the audio.
And there's so many mistakes that are made, that are either one way or another. Saying it is something when it's not, or saying it's not something when it actually is, or characterizing it,
So who's to know?
Well, and it's subjective too. It's too much subjectivity. But like we've said, there are the American Society for Psychical Research, just like the British Society, still exist. And they've been, for a century, or more than a century, they've been one of the best, compilers and, editors, or what would you want to say, reviewers of actual material, that is submitted to them, whether yay or nay, even if they're only doing the collecting of it, and collating it or curating it. It's something that I would do it. I would not have a problem. Of course, I don't do all the technical stuff that you do, but I would do it, because if you don't want to submit your evidence and what you're saying is happening, then why? Is it not real? Is it just, this is just that you faked it? They don't want to be called fraud.
And some people do fake it.
A lot of people do.
And that's the hard thing for clients. I think that's the big reason why people are afraid to call in, investigators when they're having a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
They see things on TV and it makes them afraid, but they should be afraid, because some teams out there are not in it for the right reasons.
That's
and
right.
And you have to trust strangers to come into your home. So I can relate, I can understand why they feel the way they feel. If I wasn't an investigator and I was having a paranormal problem in my home that scared me to where all the family is living in one room, because I've had cases like that. They're so afraid of who to contact. And then if they contact this person, are they reputable? They have to do their homework on teams before they just let anyone come in. And the problem is, some of the reputable teams, most of them are booked. They're booked up. They have a waiting list, and it takes a while for them to get to that client. So then they get desperate and they just let anybody come in. But what they have to realize is, you see the crazy in the world right now. If you just let these two guys in that say they're paranormal investigators and they've been for years and years, you better do research and find out, if you can find anything on them. Because if you let them in your home, what if they, do damage in your home, steal from you, or even worse?
And that's just, and I've talked about it in risks, that's just the team should be doing that too. Any kind of a team leader should be ready to, basically screen everybody who wants to be a member, at least, in as far as possible. Sometimes they've got people who've been arrested for theft, arrested for, there've been situations where they've done an investigation, gone, and somebody goes back to the house and breaks in and rapes somebody in the home or something, or does something else.
You have to have your liability papers. You have to have everything, from your members. And
that's right.
Also, you have to do the same thing with the client. If you don't go and do an interview first and see what you're bringing your team into, and never go alone, because you don't know the people in the home, if they're trying to get you in there to harm you.
So exactly. Drug dealers and all kind of stuff, like, if people, and unfortunately, it's just because it's exploded so big. Everybody's looking for fun, and that should be like last on the list. I mean, I guess you got to enjoy what you're doing.
Well, I think last year I'd sent out an email to a bunch of teams. I think I sent one to you. There was this lady that called me and she was crying and said her kids were in danger, all this and this and this and this. And I said, well, what kind of proof do you have of all these things? So she sends me photographs of this empty home that was up for sale. It had a realtor sign in front of it. And she was trying to tell me that she purchased the home, but before she could move anything into it, she needed an investigation done, because all the washing machine was moving by itself and all kinds of things. So she sent me the photographs of the empty home. Then her mistake. Okay. She sent me a photograph of a creature that I've seen on the internet before.
Yeah.
And it was obviously outside, black and white, nothing that looked like the inside of the house picture she sent me. And she told me that was taken in the laundry room. And I knew better. I already knew better, you know. So I called her out on it, and she didn't want to talk to me anymore.
Well, I guess not.
Feel they were trying to get us with our equipment to go to that location that was still for sale, but not from them. You know, they didn't buy that house. Get us to that location, maybe to rob us or worse.
Well, and a lot of times it's as simple as they want to find out information from you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they'll tell you this is happening.
They said that house was still for sale. They didn't even know who she was.
That's terrible. But you see, and I'm sure that's happening to a lot of well-meaning people across, you know, the U.S. and the world, and you know, other areas where, because this thing, you know, I mean, paranormal. I can't say this thing, but this paranormal research thing, it bloomed once, like in the 60s and 70s, but this one is even bigger, and just simply the, you know, the attraction of people who want to engage in it, as well as people who want help from it or to be near it or whatever. It's plateauing slowly. You know what I mean? Like, where is it going to go?
Yeah, I did an investigation in my early days when I first had my team, and we went to this, it was trailer park, you would call that here in the South. And these two guys, you know, they wanted us to do the investigation. Well, in the middle of the investigation, the guy slips and says, oh, well, we wanted to put our own team together, so we wanted to know, you know, how to do things. So they were actually taking notes on how we set up and did things, what our equipment was and all this. And we're like, oh, no, you know, this is not what we're here for.
Yeah. They want to pick your brains. They want to know what you would say or do.
So you can't go by emotions like them crying and, you know, a woman hysterical because her kids are being this and that when you don't even know. That's what the interview's for.
That's right.
So I had to learn that.
Well, and you did, but so many have not.
Right.
You know, but I'm just saying there was an early days for you. You know, there was.
You can't just up and run because they say they're having all these problems. You have to have a method, you know, and a plan.
Yeah, to weed them out. And it goes back to, you know, having a support network, which would be good. I find that ego and vanity get in the way. All the, you know, everyone that you see on TV regularly, don't tell me they don't have ego problems, because they do. You know what I mean? They have egos because they're on TV. It just naturally comes. You could be the nicest person in the world, but you're still going to get that sense of, you know, hey, I'm on TV, you know, and there's all these people watching me, you know. So that in itself precludes anybody coming together under a particular, you know, banner of, hey, let's all submit across the board, submit our evidence to these people who are already established, you know. I mean, and back in the day, oh, well, we're almost out of time, Joe was saying. Back in the day, I was going to say we had Hans Holzer and all of that. And who knows if we don't have the same kind of people available. But anyway, we've come to the end of the program tonight. I just wanted to get in before the end. Visit our friends, Spars Paranormal, SPARS. They have Meet the Spirits of Beauvoir. The next meet and Ghost Hunt is on July 15th. Bernadine, you've got where we can get in touch with you.
www.lspr-society.com.
And you can look for me on Facebook, on Twitter, Tumblr, the whole, usually under the handle Eileen Orleans, or on Facebook under my name. Website is still in the works. We are an iHeartRadio network. I'm sorry, but I said it. iHeartRadio network. So, but stay tuned for Miss Kathy Bilski and Quantum Leap, and stay up for 2 a.m. Terminus. It's going to take you Two, and I can't remember what it is. No, I'm sorry. Crom Cruach, the Bloody Bent one, the original God of the Irish. Check it out at 2 a.m. on Terminus. Dark ambient radio. Have a great weekend, folks. We'll be back on Friday night.
Night, night, all.
Goodbye.
You're clear, guys.
Yeah.
Turn it down.
I gotta go. I gotta be up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
I thought you didn't get up at 5.
I don't, but we have a farmer's market to do tomorrow. That's why my mom's here.
Oh, cool.
Dean says she's going to make some cha-ching, baby.
I'm gonna
Let me know.
try.